I tried out the store, but I didn't like it, so I left. Got in kind of a fight with the people that ran the stupid thing, and I went back to the kitchen, and that was supposed to be like the highest level, supposedly, but I didn't like it. It was like nothing but waitressing or something, and I didn't like it, but people liked it because you got tips. Well, big deal, but anyway, I didn't like it. It felt like slavery to me. Anyway, cost my parents $50 a day to go there. Now, back then, that was a lot of money, but for this type of place, nowadays, I'll bet Gould Farm costs one hell of a lot more now. But then, that was a lot of money. My parents were spending an arm and a leg for me to go there, and I was at McKee House. That was the name of the house. I racked my brains trying to think of that place. I hated it there. Hated it there so much. It was so isolating and so damn lonely. There was like one payphone to the outside world. Oh man, it was awful. No one ever answered the damn payphone. Oh, that was awful. Oh, jeez. I had a choice of going to Spring Lake Ranch, but I hated that even more. I tried it out once, and you had to have a roommate, and I didn't want a roommate, man. I didn't want a roommate. You got your own private room, and that I liked very much. I used to spend a lot of time, writing letters, and I wanted privacy. I wrote letters to friends, we had snail mail back then. I wrote a lot of letters to my friends. I did have snail mail friends. There were, I wrote to people in prison. I could relate to people who were in prison, see. Because I've been in hospitals, and they were just like prisons. They still are, baby. They still are. Anyway, the whole idea, if you read their Gould Farm literature, was to be independent from your parents, and yet your parents were paying for the place. So, a lot of sense that made, right? But the idea was to get you working, man. Working. So, they wanted to get you working, but it wasn't really meaningful work. Their idea was work equals functioning in society. But what kind of work was it? It was basically do as you're told. It wasn't thinking. Because you didn't think. You didn't think, you just did as you were told. To me, functioning meant doing something that had meaning. To me, their work was slavery. It was nothing but slavery. It was do as you're told and don't question it. Do as you're told and don't question it. To me, having a meaningful life meant education, educating yourself and doing something that had meaning and thinking clearly and having meaningful dialogue with others and thinking and having real beliefs and believing in something meaningful and having meaningful relationships with others and relating to the world in a meaningful way. And slavery, that wasn't anything of meaning or value to me. Even if it made money, even if it meant someday not being on disability. But what did Gould Farm do? It got me on disability, claiming that I had schizophrenia. I had an eating disorder, which they didn't even acknowledge. That was what was wrong with me. I had an eating disorder. So, meanwhile, they discouraged meaningful relationships because the first thing when you got there, you were told you can't talk about your prior experiences, and, what had I just come off of? Why was I there in the first place? Well, I could never talk about why I was there. I could never talk about what got me there in the first place. Because they pretty much, given up on me over in Vermont where I was living. Basically I was living on my own and, kind of trying to survive with these abusive roommates and everything. And one of them was like, well, I don't know, like she was like drinking all the time and everything, and it was like well, I was like suffering from my eating disorder. suffering real bad from my eating disorder. So, and I had this therapist who was like a faker. And he told me he could cure my eating disorder, and I was getting better, He was lying to me because I wasn't getting any better. And so, I finally told him, hey, I'm not getting better. You're lying to me. I'm going to go home. I'm going to kill myself. And he said, oh, you're getting better. You're fine. I went home. Yeah. Okay. That's about the last thing I remember. And then I spent a couple months in the hospital. All my friends turned my back on me. And the nurses didn't listen. Oh, they didn't care either. Polishing the nails all the time, basically. You know, it was hell. It was hell. Because I lost all my friends. Hey, everyone else at Gould Farm was in the same situation, man. Most of them were survivors of suicide attempts and abusive hospitals, too. And a lot of people were drugged out of their minds. You know, a lot of them, you know, it was all I wanted to do. I didn't see any hope for myself. I didn't see any way out. I didn't see that I would ever get over my eating disorder. I didn't see that Gould Farm was the answer at all. Hell, I wanted to die all over again. I still have my eating disorder, and I didn't see that there was any answer at Gould Farm. I didn't see that anything had changed. I would call up my parents and say, put me in a hospital, man, put me in a hospital. Because I didn't see that Gould Farm, this slavery, was going to help me. You know, and I was so hopeless about this binge eating, man. And I just didn't know what to do. I wanted to get out of Gould Farm. I wanted something. I didn't want to go home, but I did want to go home because it was away from the slavery of Gould Farm, and at least my parents wouldn't be guilt-tripping me about the money. And the phone bill, me, you know, using that payphone was costing money, man. I had to make a call every time I used the payphone. It wasn't going to feed it quarters, so, you know, basically, it was, like, really a bummer. So, one day, they said, hey, let's give her lithium. Like, not for my eating disorder, but because they denied I had an eating disorder, basically. So, guess what? It cured my eating disorder. Now, I don't know one person that was cured of binge eating by lithium. I don't. Honestly, I don't. But I was. I was. Honestly, I was. I really was. I was fine. I was fine. I got on lithium. I was fine. I was eating disorder free. And they denied that I ever had an eating disorder. They said, we never saw you binge eat here. Well, do people ever binge eat in public? Hey, I don't know too many people that do. They didn't know anything about eating disorders there, folks. Most people don't even know anything about eating disorders anyway, today in 2013. Let's face it. So, there was no one to talk to about my eating disorder in the first place, about what had driven me, okay, to attempt suicide way before I came in. There was no opportunity to talk and all meaningful dialogue with others, even with staff, was completely discouraged at Gould Farm. So no one ever really knew that or understood what it meant to me, to be on lithium and to be well again, basically.